Welcome to the 15th installment of the 22 in 22 series, where we will rank the 22 teams returning to the regular season in Orlando. And at 8th in our collective rankings, we have the Miami Heat. Just like the Thunder, who I discussed in a previous video, the Miami Heat took the league by storm and had a stellar regular season, with many players having breakout seasons, nearly their entire starting lineup. These players include Kendrick Nunn, Bam Adebayo, rookie Tyler Herro, and Duncan Robinson, who is a great three-point shooter. Moving on to some player news, the Heat acquired Andre Iguodala at the trade deadline, and although his contract was a bit pricey, this only added to their already impressive player depth, which is only going to improve their team going into the bubble and the playoffs. Furthermore, 2 players tested positive for the virus, but they are unknown. But the main components of the Heat team appear to be fine, so the Heat are not really going to be affected by this. As for a season outlook, the Heat have a pretty difficult schedule going into the bubble, and even with the Heat's talented offense and defensive firepower, I predict them going 5-3 and maybe 6-2, just because they're mostly facing winning teams like the Thunder and the Nuggets, and just really good teams in general. But the Heat are still really good, so I think that they'll do pretty well around 5-3. Okay, now we're moving on to the rankings part of our video, where we'll each discuss our individual rankings. So for my rankings for the Heat, I had them at number 8, and this is because I think the Heat are really good, offensively and defensively. They're a very balanced team, and they have really great depth. So even though they have a really tough schedule, for example, they're facing the Bucks, I think that the Heat match up really well against most of these other teams. Because, for example, during the regular season, the Heat were 2-0 versus the Bucks. So the first one was the Bucks' home season opener. They completely took the league by storm, and they took the Bucks to overtime and actually ended up beating them at the Bucks Stadium. And then on another occasion, the Heat held, with the defense of Bam Adebayo, they held Giannis to only 13 points, and Giannis is like the league's reigning MVP. So that is really impressive. And I think the Heat match up really well against other teams like the Raptors, and with Bam covering Pascal Siakam, and the Nuggets as well. So it may seem a little odd that I have the Nuggets higher than the Heat. You should watch your Nuggets video, by the way. I think that the Nuggets are slightly better, just because the Nuggets are better against most of the top teams than the Heat are. So I think the Heat are really talented, but I think the Nuggets are a little bit better. But you should watch the other video to see why. A more in-depth reasoning for why I think the Nuggets are better.
I have the Heat a bit higher than what we collectively as a group decided. I have them at the 7th best team in the league. Now, I really respect this team. It's a winning culture in Miami. That's what every single player who's been through there has said. Headed by head coach Erik Spoelstra, who's one of the premier coaches in the league, and headed by a set of 2 All-Stars who have performed incredibly on both sides of the floor, namely Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. I just don't see where this team can go too much wrong. They've beaten a lot of the best teams in the NBA, including the Bucks, as Rohan mentioned earlier, and the 76ers, which should be perfect revenge and perfect motive for Jimmy Butler. So while some of these people have the 76ers ranked a bit ahead of the Heat, I think that the Heat are one of the better teams in the league. And because of their depth and coaching and their cohesiveness as a unit, their story is like when Jimmy came to the team, practice started at 6, Jimmy was up at 3:30, and then players started rolling in at 5, and the next day, there were 2 or 3 players who started rolling up at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. That's the type of team culture that leads to winning. In times like the pandemic, where there's controversy going around, you aren't certain about what's next, you need to have a team culture like that. The team which is bound together by their passion for hard work on both sides of the ball. I really think that this is a sleeper candidate to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals or even NBA Finals, but talent-wise, I don't think that they are there just yet to put them over teams like the Bucks and the Raptors. Overall, I really like this team. I really like the rookies and the veterans on this team. I like how the team is orchestrated, and I think that they will do very well in the playoffs.
All right, so I agree with Rohan on this one. I have them at 8th. And while I agree with Aki in that I think this young team led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, definitely has the talent to be a real playoff threat. I just can't put them above teams like the James Harden and Russell Westbrook-led Rockets, or the very strong 76ers team with Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Al Horford. And because I believe that they'll actually lose in the first round to a 5th seed Sixers team, I can't put them any higher than 8th in my rankings.
That just about wraps up for this segment of the 22 and 22 series. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video where we will discuss our 7th ranked team. Feel free to drop a like if you liked the video, and then if you didn't like the video, please tell us why in the comments below. And also in the comments, please tell us who you think the 7th ranked team will be. This is the boys from the Bench Warmers, signing off. See ya!